Good evening, friends. This is Professor Ventak Iyer from Welingkar, WeSchool. And here I am going to be talking to you about a very simple but a very a topic on which many of us do not spend time. It's titled as Things to Consider for the First Time Manager. Things to consider for a first time manager. So let's try and understand who is a manager. This is a word that's used very often, and not many people really know what a manager does. It's not a designation I'm talking about. It's not a position in an organization alone. These designations are fancy designations. Everybody gets it. Now, who's a manager? A manager is just about anybody. Me talking to you, the gentleman who's behind the camera who's actually filming this thing, the other support people who are all around me, my professional friends who are also attentively listening to me, all these people, everybody out here is a manager. Why have we chosen this topic? This topic is chosen because we need to understand that there are certain ways in which a manager needs to conduct himself or herself, which makes a person effective. Who's a manager? A manager is someone who takes resources. Underline the word resources with a capital R, which means what? They are basically inputs. In the study of management, we talk about the 4 M's: men, machine, materials, and money. The 4 M's. These are the 4 basic resources we talk about in management. Right? Now, over and above that, we also have the 5th one, which is invisible, which is called as methods. If I have to understand to do any task in life, be it in an organization, be it at home, be it on a social front, if I follow a certain methodical path of understanding which are the 4 M's and the 5th M, things become easier. So, who's a manager? A manager is a person who is allocated certain resources, who's given some resources. Why are the resources given? Not for the heck of it, but there's a purpose. The purpose is a goal. So there's a goal, and the goal is SMART. When we say SMART, it means it's specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound. So when a person starts thinking in these terms that this is my goal, in most cases we come across people who talk about goals in a very loose way. I want to be a CEO in 5 years. I want to attain this particular mountaineering feat in next about 2 or 3 years. A little vague people are. Vague goals do not get achieved. So one of the most important things that a manager needs to do is to have a specific SMART goal. Once the goal is set, goal is something like a distance away from me in terms of timeline. So I need to reach that goal, right? And to reach that goal, I need to have some inputs. These inputs are called as resources. Now, the most challenging part of life is I put down that these are the resources I need to reach a goal G. I put down all the resources that I think I need to reach a goal G. But all of you will agree that these inputs, these resources which I have mapped may not be always available. So the purpose of this module is to make us understand that despite the best of intentions, despite the best of all the intentions to achieve a good goal, you may not get all the resources available with you. How to make it happen? Most of us do it, but we do it by fits and starts. Most of us do it by trial and error. And most of us get stressed out. That's a sad part of it. Last but not the least, we get stressed out because we go haywire. We are human beings. There's an expectation, there's an emotion, and ideally if things happen my way, I'm very happy, which doesn't happen all the time. And so what happens is there's a lot of push and pull like a tug of war, and we achieve goals. We get a pat in the back, we get an award, we get an increment, we get a promotion. Perfect. But am I feeling happy about it? Have I created a blueprint, a type of a path which can be replicated, which can be used in different scenarios? That's a question. Now that exactly is what we are trying to do given the time, to give you a certain idea about how to go about doing it. Right? So I reiterate again, there is a goal, a smart goal, and there is a path to the goal. The point where I am standing right now is the place where I have to map, I have to understand what are the resources available with me. So once these resources are known to me, it becomes easier for me to take the steps towards achieving my goal. Of course, there will be barriers and all coming in, but then this is the first important point to be done. So if you ask me what a first-time manager has to do, he has to map his resources, number one. Then there are 4 points which I would like you to note down. First point is resource allocation. Resource allocation. Second point is resource utilization. Resource utilization. The third one is resource conservation. Resource conservation. And the fourth one is resource augmentation. I'll repeat. Resource allocation, resource utilization, resource conservation, and resource augmentation. Now these 4, to my mind, as a management consultant and a trainer, behavioral trainer, is most important for anybody to understand how to map his resources. A first-time manager, a person who's taken up a responsibility to do something, he may have even people reporting to him, the most challenging thing to happen. Now this person has to ensure that he's taking care of all the 4 properly. So let's take the first one, resource allocation. What do you mean by allocation? Something that is given to you. I've been allocated some time to talk to you. Say about 30 minutes or so. This is my resource allocation as far as time is concerned. So with this resource allocation, I must be able to give you the best of the topic as best as possible, as far as possible. That's my focus. So I must be aware that I've got just 30 minutes and I need to talk about the topic in a manner in which most of you who are listening to this particular video would be able to absorb and understand and get some idea about how to do it. Right? So an allocation of resources, what is given to me, what is allocated to me. I need, say, let's say 2 hours and I'm given half an hour. Now, am I going to be cribbing about it? Certainly not. Given this half an hour, what's the best I can do? Am I going to skip out on some parts of 2 hours of module? Certainly not. I'm going to encapsulate it. So that's my skill which I need to do as a backup, as a background. So first is resource allocation. The resource allocation could also mean allocation of other resources besides time. It could be the room where I'm sitting, for example. You must have seen media people, they go to the place where an accident or an incident has taken place, and they're right there. Rain is falling, and they have to interview someone. They have to take some notes, and they have to broadcast it through the OB van. And that's not easy, as you know. Now that's where the resource allocation plays a very important role. How they do it, despite all the odds, is where you start maturing as a good manager. Right? Then comes resource utilization. I've got 30 minutes with me to talk to you. Am I utilizing it properly? Am I using it effectively? There's a likelihood that if I'm not prepared properly, I may be wasting my time, digressing away from the topic, or I may get distracted by something here and there, and so I'll find myself not using my resources properly. I was told to talk about this topic a few days back, so that was again a resource available, which means I had to choose the topic, put the points together, and that had to be done in a proper way. So I had to utilize the resource given to me. So first comes allocation, what is given to you. Utilization is how you use it. And the third one is conservation. Conservation means what? Preserving. Do I take away all the resources that is given to me? Ask a middle class housewife in India. Does she use all the money given to her by the husband, who may be the only person working perhaps? The Indian housewife is one of the best managers, as you know. What does she do? If a certain amount of money is given to her ex, she conserves one part of it and she doesn't tell anybody. The kids may come along and say, Mama, I would like to have this chocolate or something like that, and she'll pull it out and give it to him. Now, she knows that there is something called a saving for a rainy day, conservation. So even if I'm given half an hour, I need to have certain amount of time as a conservation, a saving, something which is going to help me perhaps in answering your questions. You guys are listening to me right now. So that conservation is very important. Right? Then comes augmentation. What do you mean by augmentation? Adding on. Despite having limited resources, a first-time manager should learn to add on to the value, add on to the effort, add on to the results by giving out something more than what the customer is looking for. What we talk of in marketing terms as customer delight. So can I augment my talk to you? Can I give you something very, very exciting which you look forward to coming back to us again? So in my context of what one first-time manager needs to do, he needs to allocate, understand the allocation of resources. He needs to understand the utilization of resources, conservation, and also augmentation. Now, if I put these four in a proper order and I'm conscious about it, then I'll find myself going through minimum wastage and the maximum or the optimum utilization of available resources, which is the definition of management. What is management? Optimum utilization of available resources to fulfill certain pre-set goals or objectives. Management is nothing but optimum utilization of available resources to fulfill certain pre-set goals or objectives. As simple as that. So now, having given you this broad overview about the four different inputs, the four different aspects of a resource which you need to take into account, let's try and understand what we need to do further. You're a first-time manager. First time means it's the first time something is given to you, a new responsibility is given to you. So when a new responsibility is given to you, you're excited, or maybe you're afraid. There are emotions that come. These emotions are the important part. They drive you towards action. An emotion can be taken from two different angles. It can be taken as a stress. It can cripple you. Or it can be taken as a motivator, as a turbocharger. What we call it as eustress. And it can actually propel you into an action. Just imagine that you are one of those novice singers. You know, you have been crooning here and there. You have been singing in some parties. And then suddenly one fine morning, a friend of yours is calling you for a performance. So he says, here is a place where I want you to come over. And you go there and you find a huge crowd. And you realize that it's a place where people are going to really look at you. You're just thrown open into the well. And then what happens? Imagine that scenario. You'll feel butterflies in your stomach. You start feeling little, could I do it? You may get a little scared. But there's a certain amount of coaxing. Something in you tells you, let me give it a shot. And you find there are some very good singers and all sitting in the audience in the very first row. Now that butterfly, that feeling of butterflies in your stomach is what is called as a eustress. So you go there, you stand there, take the mic in the hand. And maybe you may fumble initially in introducing yourself. Maybe you may feel a little, nervous. And then gradually you'll start talking and then maybe take a song and start singing. If you hold an instrument like a guitar or something in your hand, maybe you'll start strumming it and start playing it. So in other words, situations, my dear friend, they just occur from nowhere. I want this new input to be understood by all of us. A first-time manager is given a new situation. Every day is a new situation. My colleagues who are actually enabling this whole show, they have been facing a situation since afternoon, trying to shuffle with many things here and there, and they did a brilliant job. Let me tell you this. It's because they have learned to manage. They've learned to manage. So there are times, for example, this shooting is going on, there are the lights at the top, the gentleman behind who's helping me recording it, he has to position his cam properly. Now all these things are a part of a situation. The situation may vary. I'm sitting right here, I may have to move to another place. So as a first-time manager, I'm using the term, I may have to go there and actually adapt myself to the situation. So the word is adaptation. So first we talk about who's a manager. Second, we talk about the 4 different parts of the resources. Next, we talk about the situation, and with the situation comes adaptation and not adjustment. Adjustment is painful. Adaptation is powerful. What do you mean by adaptation? Adaptation means I am with the goal. I have a goal clarity. I'm committed to the goal. I love to go towards the goal. I know there are challenges in terms of limited resources. I know there are challenges and barriers which I could be encountering down the line, but I'm committed. I'm clear about the goal. If this is my approach, then I become what is called as proactive towards the goal. Proactive, which means, for example, if I'm asked to shift my place from wherever I'm sitting right now, maybe to the seat next or a little away from this place, I won't feel nervous. I won't feel upset. I may have to physically move from here to another seat and sit there. It'll be a matter of a few seconds and I'll be back to my composure. Now that's important. Now this is a skill which one has to learn. This is a skill which one has to imbibe. How do you learn this skill? Simple. Keep doing it again and again. Keep asking for situations which are challenging your limitations. Keep asking for situations which is giving you the discomfort. A first-time manager has to ensure that he or she is asking for discomfort. This sounds very weird. You're going to ask for challenges. You're very comfortable living in a city since childhood, and the company wants to send you to a different city altogether. You don't know the language. You don't know the food is very different from what you eat here, and everything is different. How many of us would willingly go there? First-time manager again. A first-time manager in a different city. Are you a person who's willing to go there, jump into the well, learn to swim, get adapted? Is a question. Now once you get adapted to that, it becomes easier for you to learn, to understand that yes, I can do it. What does a first-time manager need as a motivation? The first success. The first-time manager needs a first success. All of you will agree that when there's a first success that comes, you feel all the more happy with yourself, and so you would like to move further. So one success will beget another success. You will feel like going ahead, right? So when you do it for the first time, it's a little shaky, but when you've conquered it, you feel wow, and you're willing to go for the next one. Your confidence level goes up. And when you do this a number of times, you'll find that you're there and you can do it effortlessly. It becomes a competence. So my suggestion, my take to all of you is, friends, learn to get into understanding your goal to begin with. Clear-cut goal, smart goal. You may need to sit with a mentor, a coach. You may have to talk to some knowledgeable people who look at you independent of what they are. Having done that, you must know what are your resources available and then use them in the manner in which I've discussed. Get a proper fix on the situation which you're handling, which changes from time to time. Get adapted to the situation. And once you're adapted, you'll know how to go about doing it. The whole process comes with a lot of enthusiasm, with a lot of fun. You need to create it for yourself. And when you create it for yourself, you'll realize, after all, it was not as scary as ordinary people think about. It's very strange but true. I've come across people who find it least stressful to climb a mountain, which is very steep. But they find it extremely stressful to talk in front of a group of people. Public speaking. Strange but true. They are willing to take something which is arduous and risky, physically very arduous and physically risky, but here they get completely frozen. So another important dimension which I want all of you to understand is a first-time manager should be able to gain what is called as emotional comfort, emotional intelligence, emotional quotient. What do you understand by this? Not running away from emotions. It's about understanding that the emotion is nothing but it's a reaction within your mind and your body to a situation. An emotion is a reaction in your mind and body to a situation. And the human body and the mind is designed in such a way that we seek comforts, we seek stability. So if I'm stable in a particular place, my comfort is very high, and because my comfort is high, what happens? I feel good about myself. My emotion is positive. On the other hand, if I move to another place and I'm not adaptable, then I feel an emotion of discomfort or unhappiness. So when changes take place, you and I are subjected to emotional swings. A first-time manager, if he or she has to adapt to the changes, they must be able to be watchful about their about their emotions. What do I mean by watchful? Your emotions are as good as you language the situation. Let me repeat. Your emotions are as good as you language the situation. There's something called a self-talk we go through. Self-talk. What is your self-talk? Ask yourself a question. If your self-talk is positive, it enables you to go further. If your self-talk is not so positive, then you find it quite stressful even to talk. So when you go within yourself, you realize two things are affecting you. One is your self-talk, the other one, an emotion that is emerging. What's a self-talk? It's a languaging I give to a situation. Right now the recording is going on. If my self-talk says, oh my God, how is this recording going to come out? Or if I start getting into some sort of a negative self-talk, then I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing right now. So it's important for us to understand that we have to take this further. And so it's important for us to understand that an emotion is an important part to be handled by most of us who are taking up new tasks as first-time managers. So what I would be doing right now is there are some, I think some of you are online and I would like to talk to you all. Welcome Devi Prasanna Pradhan. There's a mention by Mr. Pradhan that even if we do not go to a new place, there could be a change in a situation. This could also affect the emotions, how to deal with that. Good question, Pradhan. I'm going to answer it. Situation is not about a change of location geographically, need not be. It's all about a situation can be as flimsy, inverted commas, as somebody telling you that from tomorrow onwards you're going to be sitting in another table. They've just told you this, mind you. Tomorrow onwards you're going to be sitting at that table. That thought itself creates a shift in the situation into which you are. So that could create a certain amount of problem. Again, Mr. Pradhan, this is what I'm addressing to you and others, that this thought is my self-talk. It's a reaction to what has been told to me. Now, can I reframe the languaging? Can I look at it as an opportunity and not as a threat, Pradhan? If that is something which I can learn to do, initially it is challenging. But as I do it, I realize that yes, it's all out here in my head. I'm sure, Mr. Pradhan, you must have gone through some situations wherein something must have been told to be done. There was hardly much of time for you to respond. You must have plunged into it. There must have been a lot of mixed emotions. And you actually did it. And when you did it, you came out of it emerging as a winner. In most cases, most of us are pushed into situations and then we perform. And when we are pushed into it, practically 99% of us do not like it. And then we perform. Here I am giving you an insight. I'm giving you a recipe wherein I say, you push yourself into a situation. And all of you will agree that when you push yourself into a situation, the stress and the self-talk, negative self-talk will be very low. And you'll be able to go ahead. There's what is called as a law of identification. Law of identification. Now this law of identification tells you that when something is coming from me, it's always dear to me. It's something which I like to do. We see it at home with children. When you tell your child to do something and he comes out with his own idea, if you stop him, he feels dejected. But when you tell him, beta, you do it, what happens? This boy does it gleefully. Now he may make mistakes from your point of view. But when he does it gleefully, what happens? He starts discovering himself. It's a process of discovery. So when I am doing something from my initiative, instead of somebody else telling me to do it, it becomes very joyful. It's good that I do something of my own, go wrong, make mistakes, fall down, and then get up and again run. This is something which I'm inviting all of you to get into. It's going to go a long way in your life. The earlier you do it at a younger age, the better it is for you, friends. Because a lot of people find it extremely stressful to take decisions. Problem solving is way ahead, but basic decisions people find it difficult to take, and their decisions are taken by someone else. A first-time manager, for him, he gets an opportunity to apply this into practice. Take a decision, get nervous, make your mistakes, get up and start running again. There will be a lot of cacophony around you. People who are going to tell you, all well-intentioned people will tell you, I told you not to do this. See, I told you you'll fail. See, this is what will happen. See, this is stressful for you. They'll tell you many things. And we are all drowned into that, unfortunately. You need to have a mind of your own, and you need to go and attend to it your way. I am not suggesting that do not listen to people. No. I am suggesting that do not get drowned by what people are saying to the point to which you can't take your own decision. It's a balance between what people are telling you. Well-intentioned people tell you many things. And you have your own personal ambitions. You must learn to balance it. If I love you and you are going to be I'm going to be a mentor for you, it's my duty to see that you become independent. And to make you independent, it's my duty to push you. And if you're perceptive enough, you'll realize that my push is not harsh. It's coming out of gentle love for you, because I want to see you independent when I'm not around you. Now, this is an important aspect which many of us miss out. We get overprotected. And because of the overprotection, lots of people are into areas where they don't grow. They get frozen in decision making. They can't become first-time managers because they don't proceed ahead. So my invitation to you is learn to take your own steps. Learn to go ahead. Become a first-time manager all the time. Become a first-time manager all the time. What does it mean? Every new situation is a first-time manager for you. I would put it that way. So if I have to take this into account, friends, I would like to suggest to you some few things which you can try and do every day. Do something which you don't like to do, which you know that if you do, it's going to make you good. I'm sure all of us have gone through this. Me too, as a person, as a human being. Something I don't like to do. And I know that if I do it, it's going to do good for me. And yet, I keep on postponing it. Now that postponing is something which I would like to address, and I address it. When I do this repeatedly, my brain starts getting absorbent. It starts having less of fear and more of adventurous spirit. All of you will agree. Let me take one more question. Jason Lewis, good evening to you, Jason. Does the emotional quotient go hand in hand with the IQ? I've seen certain companies on the internet looking for it during an interview. Jason, EQ is slightly different from IQ. Today we are living in an age of information explosion, wherein you Google or you go to any search engine, you get everything under the sun. That's not an issue. Whether they are authentic or not is secondary, Jason. But what is really lacking today, unfortunately, which was not there during my generation, if I can say so, is emotional quotient. And when I say emotional quotient, I would always say, answering your question, emotional quotient should be ahead of IQ. Take a traditional home in India. Take a traditional home anywhere in the world for that matter. When I say traditional, I mean there's a father, the parents are there, father and mother, and there are children. In a typical traditional home, staying together is more important than you achieving some material achievements in life. It may sound a little different, The emotional absorption of each other is what is emotional quotient. My recommendation as a consultant, as a trainer, leadership trainer for organizations is, Jason, I would like people to actually be emotionally quotient. Emotional intelligence should be ahead. When I'm interviewing someone for a position, I ensure that the person is emotionally intelligent first. He or she must be able to absorb the complexities of human behavior. Because that's the most important challenge today. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having attrition taking place. Otherwise, we wouldn't be going through all these things that is happening in companies today, worldwide. Because intelligent, smart, intelligent people are getting hired. They got very high IQs, good performance in their curriculum as well. But when they come there, they can't relate to someone else. And that becomes pretty difficult to absorb. There is an issue I'm addressing with somebody, and that person does not have the emotional intelligence to absorb it. So he or she feels shattered. And then they leave the company or they get upset. They may not voice the upset and they start getting into ailments inside. This is the destructive power of not having EQ. Jason, I'm sure I've answered your question as much as possible, as clear as possible, right? So friends, I'm inviting some more people to come over and ask questions because there's some time left for us. And with the questions, I can give you more insights into this. Whatever I had to communicate, given the time I have communicated to you, with more questions coming up, waiting for some more questions, maybe I can add some more points. Since one of you, Jason, asked this question about EQ, now EQ is something that is, as I told you, lacking today. We are going very fast. We are going extremely fast. Performance is going faster than the human comfort. And everybody is expecting you to change. What was stability in the morning has become fluidity in the afternoon. And what is fluidity now has completely vaporized by evening. That's the way we are living today. Right or wrong is not the question. The question is, am I adaptable to these fast moving changes? My own prescription, which I have given to myself, which I live with, which many people around me are also imbibing, is learn to be first emotionally stable. Don't reach out to the sky when you're not emotionally stable. Remember one thing, friends, I'm a leadership trainer. I am coaching company leaders to take over the charge of board level. I'm a person who talks about reaching the sky on one hand. But reaching the sky cannot be a macho experience wherein you reach at the cost of your health, your emotions, and your relationships. It's important for us to understand that I should reach out to the extent to which I can enjoy being there. I can reach out to the extent to which I can have my relationships flourishing with me. I must take my team along with me. Now, when I do this, it becomes very joyful. I don't want to sit in the seat of a CEO where I have achieved becoming a CEO and I'm completely not in touch with my own self. That's very sad. And I see this happening in many organizations where I do coaching. It's very sad. Lonely people. People are lonely because they are not having the important aspect of emotional intelligence. I'm taking one more question. Madhuparna Panigiri. Good evening to you, Madhuparna. As a manager, how do I draw a line as to where EQ plays a more important role than IQ? Madhuparna, I can just give you a very simple model. When I'm working at the bottom of the pyramid in an organization, operational level, I find that I'm dealing less with the people and relationships and more with my output. But as I grow up in the ladder, my relationship management has to improve. So one of the things which I prescribe is, let's have more and more people going through emotional intelligence if you're getting promoted to higher levels. I'm sure, Madhuparna, you will agree that when you're going up the organization, dealing with people is more stressful than dealing with the work. So my prescription as you're going up the ladder is to train people into more of EQ as they're getting promoted. If I'm getting promoted from, say, one level to the higher level, it's important for me to get into an EQ training. By that I mean that the type of interactions I have at a certain lower level is slightly different from the interactions I'll be having at a higher level if I have to be effective. And that's what I would be prescribing, Madhuparna. I hope I've answered the question as adequately as possible. We've got one more question from Raj Aryan. Raj, good evening to you. Emotion and rational are associated with each other. I have a query. What will be the impact of emotion on rational behavior in a new company? Raj, emotion is an integral package of human beings. Rational is putting 2 and 2 and making it 4. Now, when I am comfortable doing what I'm doing in a new company, then automatically what happens is putting 2 plus 2 and making it 4 becomes easy. In other words, it's important for me to understand that these two go hand in hand. I'll give us a very simple example which happened to me when, as an engineer, I'm a mechanical engineer, and when I started my career as a production engineer in one of the Tata companies, those days we used to have very minimum interactions with the bosses. So when a boss comes, we literally used to fumble for words, and that was the type of culture those days. So where was my emotional intelligence? It was lowest. I just couldn't express certain things. Not only me, many others. Now because of this, what happens? We are frozen into inaction. And there is this thing called top-down control. Now today, fortunately, the scenario is very different. It's not a top-down control. It's across. It's a circular organization. And since it is a case, what happens with us? We are informally mixing with everybody. And since we are informal, the emotional intelligence is much better. Fertile ground is available today. If I'm daily talking to you, it becomes easy for me to relate to you. But if you're acting very formal, very dogmatic, very aloof, then my emotional intelligence will not get nurtured by me, neither by you. So one of the prescriptions which I've been offering very, very committedly to all the senior managers and decision makers is, if you want your boys to be with you, connect to them. Just don't communicate, connect. And one of the ways to connect is get informal, be authentic, be a human being first and last. Because at the end of the day, your position is just a position, you're a human being. Don't carry debris of something which you can't really repair. That's my prescription. I hope I've answered your question. Let me see if there are some more questions. I'll answer it in the meanwhile. Okay, now there's one more question by Venki Nadar. Venki, good evening to you. Does an old experienced manager need to press the rest button and do things done by the first time manager in some situation? Can it really help? Venki, very good question. I'll take it up. There are two types of managers we're talking about. One is a first time manager, the other one is an experienced person. Venki, as a matter of fact, many of us have done this. I'll give us a very simple example. Ours was a generation which did not start career with computers. We were a non-electronic generation when we started. As we grew into our careers, into our professions, the electronic medium started coming in. When the first computers landed up on the desk, many of my colleagues were blown away and they did not accept it. Some of us gave a pause button, gave a rest button, to use your word, Venki. And because we gave the rest button, what happened? We said, let's do what is popularly called in change management as the process of unlearning and relearning. Now in change management, we have a term called unlearning and relearning. What is this unlearning, relearning? It's about, I'm relating to you with a certain emotion today. I'm used to it. Suddenly there's a change. Take a home. My son. I'm relating to him every day. He's a small kid. He grows up to become a teenager. Now he's seeing a new world. He is exhibiting a new behavior. Am I pausing to relate to my son differently or not? That's a rest which Venki is talking about. So if I pause, I start realizing that my son is no more a kid. He has become a teenager. So let me relate to him as a teenager so that he is comfortable, I'm comfortable, and we understand each other and we are effective and harmonious. Now this rest, to answer your question, Venki, it's important. One needs to take a pause. A pause button one needs to press. Because when I press a pause button, what happens is I see things and I feel things which I would not otherwise see or feel. Unfortunately, many people don't do this. They go for a break and a vacation. Even that has become too logical, unfortunately. How many of you take a off from office time? Let's say you take a break, you take a casual leave. How many of you really don't do anything and just sit and start reflecting upon your life? Very few people do that. That day they start filling themselves with activities. Chill out. Take it easy. Watch what's going on and then try to regenerate. Okay, friends? So with this, I'd like to conclude this session. I'm very thankful to the Institute for giving me this opportunity. I'm sure all of you have added value to yourself listening to me. Wish you all the best. God bless you.